Something nearly every NBA player comes to learn is that the NBA is in fact a business. At the end of the day, an organization is going to do what they think will benefit them the most. That includes trading out players who least suspect it. We've seen some of those trades ruin NBA careers. With Dwight Howard being the best player the Magic had since Shaq, his trade to LA began a slow downfall of one of the best centers the modern era has seen. After being selected first overall in the first round of the 2004 draft by the Orlando Magic, the 6'10", 265-pound big man by the name of Dwight Howard was bound to be the next Shaquille O'Neal. Dwight joined a bad NBA team that just the season before had only won 21 games, and after losing All-Star Tracy McGrady, Dwight would need to deliver some much-needed assistance to the failing Magic. And luckily for the Magic, Dwight was an overnight success. As a rookie, he averaged a double-double of 12 points, 2 blocks, and 10 rebounds a game, being the youngest rookie to average a double-double in the process. The Magic had even had coach Brian Hill help Dwight gain an extra 20 pounds of muscle over the summer so that he could transfer from the power forward position to a full-fledged center, a plan he had since the draft. An ESPN writer even said this when he was explaining Dwight. Obviously, Dwight Howard is the #1 pick of the draft. The Magic's first pick has been very impressive. He's a great young athlete. He's got a great body to build on. He seems like he has a good feel for the game. Obviously, if he has the maturity and the work ethic, he has a bright future in front of him. By Dwight's third season in the league, he qualified to be an all-star, averaging 18 points, 2 blocks, and 12 rebounds per game. Dwight had finally led the Magic to the 2007 NBA playoffs. Even though they were swept by the Pistons in the first round, the message that Dwight was a dominating presence in the paint was quickly starting to spread around the league. By the time the Magic found themselves in the next season's playoff, during the 2008-2009 season, the Magic were coming in with a much more mature Dwight that was now considered to be approaching the peak of his career. The Magic plowed through the 76ers in the first round with a 4-2 series win, dismantled a then jacked Celtics roster in 7 games, finally beat a LeBron James-led Cavaliers team, making their way to the first NBA Finals game against Kobe Bryant's Lakers. Even though they lost in 5 games, enough eyes were on Dwight to where he realized he'd be a lot more valuable on another team. But despite rumors, it wouldn't be until the 2011-2012 season that his request to be traded became public. Originally, he wanted to be traded to the Nets, stated if he wasn't traded there, he'd become a free agent. But in a move that surprised most people, Dwight was traded to the Lakers in a mass trade that included the 76ers and the Nuggets. Even Kobe seemed to be excited about Dwight joining the team. When the trade first became finalized, he said in an interview, "We obviously made some improvements to the team this summer to say the least, but it's been a blockbuster summer for us. It's just unbelievable, really. When you talk about what the Lakers have been able to pull off after regrouping after the whole Chris Paul debacle, here we are, reloaded again." Now, Dwight was coming off a 6-month break from the game from an operation on his back, and that meant he'd only have 4 weeks to get comfy with his new star-driven Lakers team in the offseason. As it turned out, those offseason weeks proved to be more important for chemistry building than it was for getting back into shape. Dwight almost immediately collided into issues with Kobe, stating that he wasn't getting enough ball time because of the star. And injuries again started to arise, except now they were with his shoulder. That, doubled with the fact that Paul Gasol had been out for a while due to an injured foot, meant the Lakers' hype was starting to fade. When the playoffs rolled around, Dwight's scoring average had been the lowest since his second year in the league. And even though he was still putting up great numbers for rebounds, the lack of scoring alone was enough to tank the team into being swept by the Spurs in the first round of the playoffs. It was clear that the Lakers' attempt to give Kobe another dominant big man like Shaq failed. Dwight couldn't physically perform due to injury, and lack of chemistry with the team's stars didn't help either. By the following season, Dwight was traded to the Rockets, and his career had never been the same since he left the Magic almost 10 years ago. In late 2019, Howard once again rejoined the Lakers team in pursuit of a ring that he's been chasing his whole career. And although Howard isn't the high-flying Superman that he used to be, he still looks like a perfect fit alongside LeBron James and Anthony Davis. With DeMarcus Cousins being one of the most hyped big men coming into the NBA, multiple injuries spanned across multiple years has stopped Cousins from being the best big man on his team. Cousins was only a freshman in college when he dropped out to declare for the 2010 NBA draft, where he was picked 5th in the first round by the Sacramento Kings. As a 6'10", 270-pound rookie, Cousins was by no means a bad player. He was a great rebounder who could score just as well. However, it was his relationship with then coach Paul Westphal that suffered early on. By Cousins' second year at the Kings, he was sent back home after a game against the Pelicans, stating that Cousins was unwilling/unable to embrace traveling in the same direction as his team. Cannot be ignored indefinitely. There's no doubt that Cousins has some growing up to do. However, the tension between the sophomore star center and the team's authority figure was bad for winning games, and the Kings had to make a decision. Ultimately, they decided with Cousins, when coach Paul Westphal was fired just 4 days after the incident. By his 3rd season with the Kings, it'd be the organization themselves that would suspend Cousins for what the Kings stated as unprofessional behavior and conduct detrimental to the team. Of course, the suspension that was declared indefinite was lifted after 2 days when they realized they needed his production. It was clear the Kings were in a constant battle with Cousins when they had to weigh in his terrible team conduct against his great performances. That same season, he was recording career highs for games in free throw shooting, field goal percentage, but also in technical fouls. Luckily for the Kings, his behavioral issue would mostly get cleared with the organization during the 2014-2015 season when he averaged 24 points, 13 rebounds, and 3 assists per game. He recorded his second triple-double in a ridiculous game against the Rockets, where he scored 24 points and had 21 rebounds, 10 assists, 6 blocks, and 3 steals. He became the 4th NBA player in history to record numbers like those. the last being Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. His performance was so great that season that he was selected to represent the Kings in the All-Star game, and Cousins' averages would only go up from there. Now in his final season with the Kings, Cousins achieved his 6th career triple-double, and he'd established a season high for points in a game with 55 points against the Trailblazers. When he just started with the Kings, he was averaging 14 points with 9 rebounds. And 7 seasons later, he was averaging 27 points with 11 rebounds per game. And despite all this success, he was suddenly traded to the New Orleans Pelicans in exchange for Buddy Hield, Tyreek Evans, Langston Galloway, and his 2017 first-round pick and second-round pick to Sacramento. The trade was a devastating blow for Cousins, who would later admit, "I wanted to finish my career in Sacramento, but at the same time, the way it went down, at the end of the day, we all know this is a business. As much as I put into that city, I just thought I deserved a little more." It seemed that fans got the news almost as quickly as Cousins did, who claimed he was left out of the conversation. His performance on the Pelicans remained unchanged from his performance on the Kings until he was injured with a torn Achilles. That injury had him out for the rest of the season, after January 31st, 2017, and after the season ended, he was now an unrestricted free agent looking for work. Not one team approached him with any offers, which he regarded as being very insulting to not receive an offer. Cousins decided to have his agent approach the nearly salary-capped Warriors to pick him up in exchange for a player that cut his salary down to $5.3 million a year. While in New Orleans, Cousins was making $18 million a year. In other words, it was no brainer for the Warriors to scoop him up, so they did. After training camp with the G League team, he debuted with the Warriors during the 2018-2019 season on January 18th. Now on a team stacked with superstars, Cousins' stats took a significant dive, averaging 16 points and 8 rebounds per game. However, his biggest problem would be his health. During the first quarter of the first-round playoffs against the Clippers, Cousins tore his quadricep. And while he did return from off the bench during the finals against the Raptors, he was clearly held back from his injury. Most recently, he was picked up by the Lakers in 2019. However, he suffered another injury when he tore his ACL, an injury that, as of February 22nd, 2020, led him to be waived by the Lakers. With Lamar Odom being a promising young power forward, trades and personal issues with his life led to his career falling apart. When Lamar Odom was drafted in 1999 by the LA Clippers, he was a literal instant success in the league. During his NBA debut against the 76ers, Odom posted a double-double with 30 points, 12 rebounds, and 2 blocks. By the time he was traded to the Lakers in 2004, he proved himself to be a gifted power forward who could guard and play in both forward positions. During his first season with the Lakers, he averaged 15 points and a career-high 10 rebounds per game. By the 2005-2006 season, Odom put up consecutive triple-double performances against both the Warriors and the Trailblazers. And he'd go on to battle many injuries throughout this time with the Lakers, but he was able to return and continue producing again with little issues. One exception to this was during the 2008-2009 preseason, when he arrived at training camp out of shape. Laker coach Phil Jackson decided to have Odom play a reserve role for the first time in his career, and Odom's stats did go down, but as the sixth man, his numbers were solid, averaging 11 points, 8 rebounds, 1 steal, and 2 blocks per game. And Lamar would win his first championship with the Lakers in 2009 when they defeated the Magic. During the following 2010-2011 season, he posted career highs in three-point percentage at 38% and field goal percentage at 53%. While he did start in a fair amount of games during that season, it would be because of his performance off the bench that led to him being awarded the league's Sixth Man of the Year and become the first Laker to be given that award. During that season's offseason, Odom considered quitting basketball after his cousin was murdered. And to make matters worse, the day after the funeral, Odom was in a passenger in an SUV that killed a teen cyclist. The events ruined Odom emotionally, and he later admitted to a cocaine addiction that would nearly kill him a few years later. Odom ultimately decided to stay in the league, and he was traded to the Dallas Mavericks during the 2011-2012 season, and his performance was never the same. He averaged 6 points and 4 rebounds a game, until he was listed inactive. He left the Mavericks with a regretful statement saying, "The Mavericks and I mutually agreed that it's in best interest of both parties for me to step away from the team. I'm sorry that things didn't work out for the better for both of us, but I wish the Mavericks organization, my teammates, and Dallas fans nothing but continued success in the defense of that championship." He was traded the final time back to his original Clippers team during the 2012-2013 season, but the change did little to help, and his averages plummeted even further. Off the court, he was facing legal charges after being charged with a DUI, and after finishing with the Clippers, he became a free agent. After receiving no offers, he went to play at the Spanish League. He was able to finally get a contract with the Knicks, but he didn't play a single game, and he was waived not too long after. With Isaiah Thomas putting up MVP numbers in some years of his career, a trade to a new city was his downfall, and we haven't seen MVP caliber Isaiah since. While some knew what Isaiah Thomas was capable of, even when he was on the Sacramento Kings, it wasn't until he was traded to the Boston Celtics did the rest of us find out how impactful a 5'9" NBA player could be. Danny Ainge had a set role in mind for Isaiah, and he admitted saying, "Isaiah's a dynamic offensive player whose scoring and playmaking ability add to an already well-rounded backcourt with Marcus Smart and Avery Bradley. We're excited to welcome Isaiah to the Celtics family," and Ainge was right to assume that he'd provide nearly instant offense off the bench. It only took Isaiah's debut game against the Lakers to prove it when he scored 21 points off the bench. Not long afterwards, Isaiah scored a season-high 34 points over the Detroit Pistons. just 4 points off his career high that he had while he was on the Kings. As the season went on, his scoring went up. His efforts allowed him to play in the first playoff game against the Cavaliers, and despite taking the loss, Isaiah recorded a double-double with 22 points and 10 assists. After only playing 21 games in his first season with the Celtics, Isaiah was second in the NBA's Sixth Man of the Year award. Moving on to his second season with the Celtics, in the 2015-2016 season, he became a reserve on the All-Star team, making it the first time that he'd ever make the team. The Celtics, however, were still missing an experienced superstar. The majority of the players on the roster had just been rookies only a few years prior, and even then, none were really remarkable. His second chance at the playoffs was against the Atlanta Hawks, and even though the Celtics would be beaten again, Isaiah's personal stats remained high. His last season with the Celtics would be his most impressive. At this point, it was undeniable that he was Boston's star. He was averaging 29 points, 6 assists, and 3 rebounds per game. Isaiah wasn't just leading the Celtics in stats, but also the league. During the month of January, he led the NBA in scoring with 33 points per game. Isaiah dominated the Eastern Conference all the way into the playoffs, where in the first round, they faced up against the Chicago Bulls. And after leading the Celtics to a first-game win, tragedy struck. Isaiah Thomas's sister, China Thomas, was killed in a car accident just outside of his hometown in Washington. Her death took place just before the first game of the playoffs. Isaiah decided to play through the series, and he led his team to a 4-2 victory over the Bulls. Before moving into the Eastern semifinals against the Wizards, Isaiah traveled back home to attend his sister's funeral, and he managed to play even better upon his return to Game 1 against the Wizards. He put up 33 points and 9 assists, leading them to a 123-111 Celtics win. Game 2 would be even more impressive. He scored 53 points, becoming the second highest playoff performance in Celtics history. After a close series, the Celtics came out on top during Game 7. Unfortunately, after Game 2 in the Eastern Finals against the Cavs, Isaiah was ruled out due to a hip injury, and it'd be announced in the offseason that Isaiah would be traded to the Cavaliers in exchange for Kyrie Irving. But the news got even worse when it was announced that his hip injury was far worse than expected. The Cavs had even released a statement that suggested that Isaiah might not even be able to play for the entire season. He was sent to the G League to get back onto his feet, but by the time he finished the remainder of the 2017-2018 season with the Cavs, he was no longer the same Isaiah from Boston. Coming off of 28-point averages with the Celtics, Isaiah was now averaging 14 points and 4 assists per game with the Cavs. By the time the season had come to a close, he was traded once again to the Lakers in 2018, and he had only slightly better numbers, but by late season, he was out again for issues with his hip. Isaiah had gone through 2 more trades since, one to the Nuggets and most recently to the Wizards. Isaiah hasn't been able to reach his Celtic level of play since. Hey yo dog, what are you doing right now, huh? Eating some spaghetti? Watching YouTube? Click on this video, bro! I'm gonna knock that bowl of spaghetti all over your feet, and you're gonna have like spaghetti sauce in your foot.